And so we have arrived at the 20th and final film in my Amicus review series, but could Amicus go out on a high with The People That Time Forgot? Hi guys, so before we get into it, a very quick disclaimer that you'll find all my other Amicus reviews in my Amicus playlist, and there will be spoilers today for The People That Time Forgot. Now, this is a sequel to The Land That Time Forgot that I covered a few weeks ago. So at the end of the first film, Doug McClure and his girlfriend were stranded on some undiscovered continent somewhere down near the South Pole, I think. But at the beginning of this film, a rescue expedition is launched. A naval ship goes after McClure in an attempt to bring him back. I don't know how they know where he is. I think I might have missed that part of the story somehow. It's literally as if McClure, aka Tyler, has activated a homing beacon or something, and that's how the Navy knows where he is. But I'm a little bit vague on this. It was weird, but let's just let that bit go. But when the naval ship gets to the island, they can't pass through the mountains that surround the island. Now, this is consistent with the first movie, but at this point they realise that a lot of them are going to have to stay behind on the ship, and only a few of them can use the Tiger plane thing that they've got to fly over the mountains. Now, all the people they leave behind on the ship just happen to be all of the naval people who look like they might have the experience to be quite good in a situation like this, and all the people who are allowed to go are the ragtag bunch of adventurous misfits who look like they shouldn't even be on a Navy ship in the first place. Now, these four people who do go, stereotypes to the last man and woman. I mean, we've got the leader, Ben, played by Patrick Wayne, I think. He's very much an Alan Quatermain type with his cream-coloured safari clothes, and he's very much the anti-hero. He says at one point, men's work is for men. He literally says that or something like that. Then we've got his sort of love interest, Charlie, played by Sarah Douglas. This character is a prim and proper upper-class sort of girl who is still getting used to things like danger and sleeping rough. Her sole purpose on this trip seems to be to take photographs. That's the justification for her having one of the seats on the plane. Personally, I would have given that seat to one of the naval officers who just happens to be carrying a machine gun, but never mind. Sarah Douglas is better known for playing Ursa in the Superman movies, which came out just after this film, actually, and it's amazing to me how different Douglas looks in this film compared to when she's in Superman. And she's actually been in more films than I even realised. And at one point, she even did a Halloween short film called Halloween H33, where she's playing Dr. Loomis's daughter. It's only a 6-minute film. It's on YouTube if you want to check it out, but it's weird that Douglas decided to do that. But this is definitely an actress I like. And she looks incredible in this film, or at least she does when she ditches the Princess Leia style hairdo about halfway through. So our third character on this trip is Shane Rimmer, playing a brash American pilot. He actually gets left behind because he stays to guard the plane when the others traipse off into the jungle after McClure. But the fact that Rimmer is left is quite typical of Rimmer's career. He normally plays like smaller parts in like James Bond films. He was in Superman 2 as well, I think. And the fourth person in the expedition is Thorley Walters, playing a scientist. Walters is a veteran of many, many Hammer films, and here he's providing the function of the guy who knows about science, and he might have a comment or two to offer about the dinosaurs that they come across and things like that. Oh, I say, evolution has taken a left turn on this island and no mistake. He probably doesn't actually speak like that, but that's how he sounds in my head. Now, this party of potential rescuers for McClure, they do come across an extra party member not long after they arrive. So they come across this local tribes girl called Ajor, or Ajor. And I guess your actual jaw may hit the ground when you see that it's the gorgeous Dana Gillespie, who you might remember from the Hammer film The Lost Continent, and she looks absolutely stunning here. Her English isn't very good at first, so when the party first encounter her, she's like, oh, I think I recognise that word, But But then 5 minutes later, in the background somewhere, she's giving the full lowdown of her entire history with Doug McClure's Tyler. So she learns English in this film at an absolute geometric rate, as Skynet might put it. I've got to say as well, why is there not an expedition to try and find the German captain from the first movie? The Germans are just not bothered with rescuing their own, but the English with the Americans, they go after Doug McClure. Though I suppose the guy who played the German captain first time around, it probably wasn't that well known, whereas, Doug McClure, I mean, that's a big deal. Basically just one rung further down the ladder from Matt Damon in the rescue priority stake, so maybe that's the reason. I think the Amicus fantasy films, for the most part, compare quite unfavourably to the Hammer fantasy films. But when we're just looking at these Amicus ones, I would say that this one is the best. It's quite a comfortable victory over At the Earth's Core, a bit closer with The Land That Time Forgot. But I'd just about give the nod to this one as the best of the three, and I think the main reason for that is that the plot is a lot more simple and straightforward here than it was in those other two movies. Like, as soon as the plane lands on the island here, the characters making a straight line for McClure. They have a few adventures on the way, but there's very little deviation geography-wise. They get to McClure, turn around, and then head back for the plane, having a few more adventures on the way home. So there and back again. There's none of this petrol hunting business that goes on in The Land That Time Forgot, with the weird water phenomenon thing that the female character comes out with. And At the Earth's Core just gets needlessly bogged down with mind-controlling lizards and all sorts of weird stuff. But this film keeps things nice and simple. I imagine this would be a very enjoyable film for kids, and from this adult's perspective, it was a pretty good ride as well, at least once you get past a certain point. I mean, this film gets all of its worst stuff out of the way quite early. So the initial plane ride over the mountains is not very good. The plane gets attacked by a pterodactyl, and it's all kind of boring. It doesn't look particularly great. It goes on forever, this sequence. Then when the characters land on the island, there's this whole thing where they're trying to tie the plane to a dinosaur to get the dinosaur to move the plane. And I don't know why they do this, because they're not exactly going to drag the thing all the way to McClure. So what was the point of this? And you know what? My headspace with this movie was not great at this particular juncture. But everything from this point onwards is really good, actually. I've got no real complaints after this moment in the film. There's lots of cool life or death situations. At one point, Charlie gets a dangerous spider in her clothes, and there's another part where some tribesmen capture our main characters and tie them to the ground so that the dinosaurs can eat them, and they've got to sort of wriggle out of their bonds just in the nick of time. You never know what new piece of danger is coming around the corner in this film, and I definitely liked that about it. But eventually we get to where McClure's being captured in a place I'll just call Skull Village, and I think this is the highlight of the film for me. I love the production design of this place. McClure himself doesn't offer that much. I mean, he's grown a beard since the first film. He looks like Luke Skywalker, but in the later Star Wars films. I actually thought Ben might hand him a lightsaber, and then McClure would just chuck it into the sea or something. But McClure's presence here does not really add to the quality of the film at all. But I did like the design of the place where he's being held. The cells that our protagonists end up in have got skulls in the walls, and there's these feudal era Japanese swordsmen who are holding them captive. It's so weird that there would be this oriental look to the villain's lair. But the sandboxes in these films are so random anyway, mixing dinosaurs with humans and random cavemen, that it doesn't bother me in the slightest that they've decided to add this sort of Asian Japanese flavour to the end of this film. Plus you get to see the villain flung into some lava, which is kind of fun, and then we sort of turn for home. And I think this was also the point that Charlie lets her hair down, so that was a cool thing too. I mean, I'd hit a high with this film just as the characters were turning to head on back for the plane. You know what? Charlie's photography skills do actually come into play. So the characters at one point, they're going down this corridor and dinosaurs are sticking their heads through holes in the wall, And Ben comes up with the idea of using the camera flash to momentarily frighten off the dinosaurs so the rest of the characters can run through the corridor. Now, this surely wouldn't work in real life, but in this film it works a treat, as you would expect. I just can't picture somebody using this as a tactic against like T-Rexes and things like, hey, do you want some? Bet you wish you had sunglasses now. I don't think Scarlett Johansson will be utilising this strategy in Jurassic Park Rebirth when it releases in 2025, and you can quote me on that. Charlie has also got a gun in her handbag. She only just realises this quite late in the film, so she's gone through all these dangerous situations with dinosaurs and cavemen and spiders, and throughout all of it not remembered she has an actual weapon in her bag that she could use. But once the group realises they've got a gun, predictably enough, it's not long before McClure gets his mitts on it, and bad guys are dying left, right and centre. They've got a lot of bullets in this gun, though. I'm sure that Charlie says that she's only got the gun plus one other clip, and yet that gun goes off a lot in the later stages of this film. Even when they get back to the plane, the gun is still being fired, warding off natives who are chasing after them and stuff. But it gets quite hectic late on. There's like lava geysers bursting up out of everywhere. The island's kind of going to hell, although I can't remember why. On the initial journey to School Village, you get to see a lot of the backdrops of the island, and there's some good scenery in this film. I can't remember where they were filming, but there's a lot of good stuff in this movie that's just very gorgeous to look at. You see characters walking in the background. You can see it at a large distance, and you didn't get anything like this in At the Earth's Core, and only very infrequently in The Land That Time Forgot. So that's another tick for this whole thing. I do think there's a little bit of a lack of urgency in the characters throughout this story. I guess that would be one other criticism I could have. You know, when the characters arrive, they're sort of behaving as if it's all a lark, and as if they've just turned up at the zoo or something, and they're not in a really hostile, dangerous environment that could probably cost them their lives. Although I think as the film goes on, I think that improves. They do start acting a bit more appropriately, certainly by the time they get to School Village and they've had all these close scrapes. But on the whole, I mean, this movie's no masterpiece, but I enjoyed it to a point, and I'd say that it's just slightly a better film for me than The Land That Time Forgot, its predecessor. So we've reached that moment where I would normally show you the version of the film that I own for this, but I don't have a copy of The People That Time Forgot to show you. I rented this on Amazon Prime for £4.50, reasonable, I suppose. Right, let's get to the bag of terror so we can see what sort of score I'm going to give this movie. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. I might have been a shade generous with this. I actually wanted to give it just 3, exactly 3. But then I remembered that I think I gave The Land That Time Forgot 3.5. So it wouldn't make any sense for me to give this film less than that, given that I claim to like this film more than The Land That Time Forgot. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 out of 5. Probably I overestimated The Land That Time Forgot, if anything, but at the end of the day, who cares? So we've come to the end of our Amicus review series. Thank you for joining me on this journey. It's been a really great ride. I still have one more video to come, which will be my ranking of the 20 Amicus films that I have covered. And then beyond that, I'm not entirely sure where I go from here. I'm still planning to do lots of sort of old school reviews from the 60s and 70s. That won't change, but I don't have any more large series planned or anything like that. I'll probably just keep the reviews kind of bitsy for a while. Somebody gave me the idea, my friend Adrian, of doing a certain anthology film from the early to mid 70s. I can't remember what it's called, but I might do that. And then maybe a few of the Peter Cushing and Vincent Price movies that are not covered by Hammer and Amicus. Same with Christopher Lee. You know, probably just things from here and there for a while. But that's for another day. For now, I will bid you goodbye. So, goodbye.